Ladies and gentlemen, you see, life has a way of making God's chosen women walk through fire, through loneliness, through heartbreak. It ain't by accident, it's by design. Because when you're called for greatness, you don't walk the easy road. You don't fit in. You don't settle. Now listen to me. God's got his hands on you. And when he calls you higher, he will separate you from the crowd. You ever wonder why certain people walked out? Why that relationship didn't work? Why you're standing alone? It's because not everyone is meant to go where you're going. There's a reason he's closing those doors. He's protecting you. He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. You don't see it now, but I promise you, you will. Because when God pulls you into a season of isolation, it's never to destroy you. It's to build you. Some of you are crying over people who left, over love that failed. But let me tell you something. When you are chosen, rejection is a gift. Every time someone walked away, God was saying they are not part of your destiny. You weren't abandoned. You were set apart. Oh, but I know it hurts. It gets lonely. You sit up at night wondering, God, why me? But let me ask you something. When has any great woman of God ever walked an easy path? Esther? She had to risk everything for her calling. Ruth? She lost everything before she gained more. Mary? She was carrying a promise no one could understand. So you, my sister, you keep walking. You keep standing. You keep trusting. Because one day, you're going to look back and thank God for every tear, every lonely night, every heartbreak. And when that day comes, when you finally step into the place God has been preparing for you, you will understand it was all worth it. Being chosen by God is an honor, but it comes with a weight that not everyone can carry. When a woman is called to a higher purpose, she is often met with greater challenges, deeper struggles, and heavier burdens. She is not given the luxury of an easy path because her life is meant to be a testimony of faith, endurance, and divine strength. While others may walk freely without much resistance, she finds herself constantly facing trials that test her spirit. Her journey is different because her assignment is different. She is called to inspire, to lead, to break generational cycles, to bring healing where there is pain. And that means she will go through storms that force her to rely on God in ways most people never have to. She will experience seasons of isolation where it feels like no one understands her, where she is forced to stand alone. These moments are not meant to break her, but to refine her, to prepare her for the greatness she has been destined for. With a higher calling comes a higher level of responsibility. She must carry herself with wisdom, move with purpose, and trust in God's plan, even when it makes no sense. She cannot afford to live like everyone else because she has been set apart for something greater. The weight she carries is not just for herself. It is for the people she is meant to impact. The late nights of tears, the silent battles, the moments of deep loneliness are all part of the process. She is being molded, strengthened, and positioned for something beyond what she can see. The burden is heavy, but it is not without purpose. It is shaping her into the woman God has called her to be. Isolation is never without purpose when God's hand is on a woman's life. When she is set apart for something greater, she will go through seasons where she feels distant from the world, removed from familiar places, and even disconnected from people she once relied on. This is not a punishment, it is a process. God isolates before he elevates. He pulls her away from distractions, from relationships that no longer serve her growth, from environments that do not align with her destiny. In this solitude, she is forced to confront herself, to deal with wounds that have been buried, to unlearn patterns that would hinder her calling. It is in these quiet moments that she learns to hear God's voice more clearly. The noise of the world fades, and suddenly she sees things differently. She begins to understand why certain people had to leave, why certain doors had to close, why she could no longer stay where she was. In isolation, she is stripped of her dependencies so that she can learn to depend fully on God. Her faith is stretched, her patience is tested, and her strength is built. What once felt like loneliness transforms into preparation. During this time, she is being refined, molded, and strengthened for what lies ahead. The relationships she loses are making room for divine connections. The silence is developing her discernment. The waiting is cultivating endurance. She is not being left behind. She is being prepared for something bigger. Many will not understand this season, but those who do will recognize that isolation is not rejection, it is training. Before stepping into greatness, she must first be equipped for it. God does not send unprepared soldiers into battle, and she is being prepared for a purpose that requires her full transformation. Divine pruning is one of the most painful yet necessary processes in a woman's spiritual journey. When God chooses her for a higher purpose, He begins to remove everything that does not align with His plan. This often means relationships that were once comforting suddenly fall apart, opportunities she desired slip through her fingers, and familiar places no longer feel like home. At first, it feels like loss, like she is being stripped of everything she once held dear. But what seems like a setback is actually a setup for something greater. God does not take away to harm, He takes away to make room for better. Pruning is a process of refinement. Just as a gardener cuts away dead or overgrown branches so that a tree can bear more fruit, God removes what is hindering growth. Some friendships, habits, and mindsets may have been beneficial for a season, but are no longer serving her future. It can feel unfair, even cruel, to watch parts of her life be cut away. But what she cannot see in the moment is that God is positioning her for something she could not reach while holding on to the past. During this season, she will wrestle with questions. Why did that person walk away? Why did that opportunity not work out? Why does it feel like everything is being taken from her? The truth is, what she calls loss, God calls preparation. He is refining her character, strengthening her faith, and removing anything that would compromise her destiny. The weight she is carrying is becoming lighter, not because she is being left with nothing, but because she is being prepared to carry something greater. The pain of pruning is temporary, but the fruit it produces will last for a lifetime. A woman chosen by God cannot live by the same standards as everyone else. She walks a different path, carries a different purpose, and is held to a different level of accountability. What others can do freely, she cannot. What others can overlook, she must confront. She is called to a higher way of living, and with that calling comes a level of discipline and sacrifice that most people will not understand. She will be misunderstood, labeled as too serious or too picky, but in reality, she is simply operating in alignment with what God has placed inside her. Her relationships, choices, and lifestyle all reflect a greater responsibility. She cannot entertain meaningless connections or settle for temporary pleasures because she understands that everything she does has a purpose. While others may compromise their values for the sake of acceptance, she knows that her worth is not found in validation from the world, but in her obedience to God. This means that some doors will remain closed to her, not because she is unworthy, but because she refuses to lower her standards for something beneath her destiny. This level of discipline can feel isolating. It can be frustrating to watch others succeed while taking shortcuts, or to see people live without conviction while she wrestles with doing what is right. But she understands that her life is not about short-term gratification. She is building something eternal, something that will require her to stand firm even when the world tells her to bend. She is called to be different, to walk differently, to love differently, to trust differently. And though the path is not always easy, she knows that it is leading her somewhere greater than she could ever imagine. A woman chosen by God is not just walking through life. She is walking through a battlefield. The moment she steps into her purpose, she becomes a target. The enemy does not waste time attacking those who pose no threat. But when a woman carries an anointing, when she is destined to break chains, shift atmospheres, and bring light into darkness, opposition will come. She will face unseen battles, struggles that do not make sense, and attacks that seem to come from every direction. This is spiritual warfare. The attacks are not random. They are designed to wear her down, to make her doubt her worth, to make her question whether she is truly called. The enemy will use discouragement, distractions, and even the people closest to her to try to pull her away from what God has for her. She will face moments where she wants to give up, where the burden feels too heavy, where the loneliness seems unbearable. But these battles are not a sign that she is failing. They are confirmation that she is exactly where she needs to be. Her strength is not found in herself, but in the one who fights for her. She cannot win these battles in her own power. She must stay anchored in prayer, in faith, in the Word of God. She must recognize that her struggles are not just physical, but spiritual. Every tear she sheds, every storm she endures, every season of waiting is preparing her for the victory ahead. The enemy fights hard, but God fights. And no matter how fierce the battle gets, she is never alone. Every attack is proof that she carries something powerful, and when she stands firm, she will see that no weapon formed against her will ever prosper. A woman chosen by God must learn to surrender to His timing, even when it does not align with her own desires. She will have dreams, prayers, and expectations that seem to go unanswered for far too long. She will watch others step into seasons she has been praying for, and she will wonder why she is still waiting. It will feel unfair at times, as if she has been forgotten, but God does not operate on human schedules. He moves according to His divine plan, and when He withholds something, it is never to punish, it is to prepare. There is a reason some doors remain closed, why some relationships never work out, why certain opportunities do not unfold when she expects them to. God sees beyond what she can see. What feels like a delay is actually divine protection. If she were to step into something too soon, before she was fully prepared, it could destroy her rather than bless her. The waiting season is not wasted time. It is a refining process. God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating the right moments, the right people, the right circumstances. Her impatience will try to convince her to take matters into her own hands, to settle for something less just to feel like she is moving forward. But settling outside of God's timing always leads to regret. When the time is right, nothing will be able to stop what God has planned for her. Every delay, every disappointment, every closed door is setting the stage for something far greater than she imagined. And when His promise finally unfolds, she will understand why He made her wait. Until then, she must trust that His timing is never late. It is always perfect. A woman chosen by God carries something powerful within her, and not everyone is equipped to handle it. Her presence alone carries a weight, a calling, an anointing that sets her apart. She will notice that some people admire her from a distance but cannot walk closely with her. Others may be drawn to her spirit but will not have the strength to support her journey. Some will even try to diminish her light because they feel threatened by it. This is not a reflection of her worth, but of the magnitude of what she carries. She will experience relationships that start strong but fade when the reality of her calling becomes evident. Some people will celebrate her until they realize the level of responsibility and discipline that comes with being anointed. The truth is, not everyone has the capacity to walk beside a woman who is chosen. The depth of her prayers, the intensity of her battles, and the sacrifices she makes will be too much for those who prefer an easier path. Some will misunderstand her passion, some will be intimidated by her strength, and some will walk away simply because they cannot handle what God is doing in her life. This realization can be painful, but it is necessary. She cannot shrink herself to make others comfortable, nor can she hold on to relationships that were never meant to last. God will surround her with people who can walk with her, people who understand her battles, people who do not fear her anointing, but rather help her carry it. Until then, she must learn to embrace the reality that being chosen means standing alone at times. It means being selective with her circle, guarding her spirit, and trusting that those who are meant to stay will not be burdened by the weight of her calling. A woman chosen by God will face betrayal, not because she is weak, but because her strength threatens those who cannot understand her purpose. She will experience heartbreak from people she trusted, deception from those she never expected, and disappointment from relationships she believed were meant to last. Betrayal is one of the hardest lessons she will endure, but it is also one of the most necessary. It exposes what is real and what is temporary, who is truly for her and who is only there for a season. She will be tempted to question herself, to wonder if she is too trusting or if she should build walls around her heart. The pain of being deceived cuts deep, but it also brings clarity. It reveals intentions, purifies motives, and forces her to rely on God rather than people. Betrayal is never easy, but it often serves as a divine redirection. Some people are not meant to go where she is going, and rather than allowing their hidden agendas to remain in the shadows, God allows them to be revealed through their actions. In the aftermath, she will learn that betrayal is not a reflection of her worth, but a test of her resilience. It is a reminder that even Jesus was betrayed, yet he fulfilled his purpose. The lesson is not in the pain itself, but in what she chooses to do with it. She can become bitter, or she can become wiser. She can close her heart, or she can trust that God removes to replace. The betrayal that was meant to break her will only make her stronger. Through it, she will develop discernment, wisdom, and the ability to recognize who truly deserves a place in her journey. A woman chosen by God will often mistake his protection for rejection. She will cry over relationships that ended, doors that never opened, and opportunities that slipped away, believing she has lost something valuable. What she may not realize in the moment is that what she calls disappointment, God calls deliverance. He sees what she cannot see, hears conversations she will never hear, and knows the hidden intentions of those around her. When he removes someone from her life, it is never by accident. It is his way of shielding her from harm, heartbreak, and setbacks she does not yet recognize. At times, it will feel like she is being denied the very thing she prayed for. She will wonder why certain dreams seem delayed, why some friendships turn cold, and why people she trusted suddenly distance themselves. But not all distance is bad. Sometimes it is divine. Sometimes God allows people to walk away because they were never meant to stay. He blocks certain opportunities because they would have led to destruction rather than destiny. The closed doors, the unanswered prayers, and the unexpected endings are often his way of saying, I have something better for you. It is only in hindsight that she will see the wisdom of his protection. The heartbreak that seemed unbearable was actually saving her from a lifetime of pain. The delay that frustrated her was positioning her for something greater. Every no was making room for the right yes. She may not understand it in the moment, but God is always working behind the scenes. His protection is not always obvious, but it is always present. What she once begged him to give back, she will later thank him for taking away. A woman chosen by God will go through seasons where everything feels dry, empty, and uncertain. These are the wilderness seasons, where prayers seem to go unanswered, doors remain closed, and nothing seems to move forward. It is a place of testing, of refining, of stripping away everything she once relied on. The wilderness is lonely, but it is not a place of abandonment. It is a place of transformation. God does his deepest work in the wilderness, removing distractions, breaking strongholds, and drawing her closer to him. The season will challenge her faith in ways she never expected. She will question why she feels stuck, why everything around her seems to be falling apart, and why she cannot hear God as clearly as before. But silence does not mean absence. God is there even when he seems quiet. He is teaching her to trust him beyond what she can see, to walk by faith and not by sight. The wilderness is not a punishment. It is preparation. It is where she learns endurance, where her character is shaped, and where her dependence on God deepens. She may feel alone, but she is never truly alone. The wilderness has a purpose: to separate her from what is not meant to go with her into the next season. Friendships will fade, old habits will die, and parts of her identity that were never meant to define her will be stripped away. It is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. When the season is over, she will emerge stronger, wiser, and more aligned with God's plan. The wilderness does not last forever, but what she gains from it will sustain her for a lifetime. She is not being buried, she is being planted. And in time, she will see the growth that came from her season of isolation. A woman chosen by God to lead carries a weight that few will understand. Leadership is not just a title, it is a responsibility, a burden, and a calling that demands sacrifice. While others may live without deep accountability, she must walk with wisdom, integrity, and strength. She is expected to remain steadfast when others waver, to encourage when she herself feels weary, and to lead with grace even when she feels unseen. The weight of leadership is not just about guiding others. It is about carrying a vision that often requires walking alone. Leadership comes with pressure. She must make difficult decisions, face criticism, and endure seasons where she questions whether she is strong enough for the role God has given her. Many will celebrate her position, but few will recognize the price she pays. She will feel the loneliness of standing in front, the exhaustion of constantly being looked to for answers, and the pain of pouring into others while wondering who will pour into her. The weight is heavy, but it is necessary. God does not call leaders without equipping them, and every challenge she faces is shaping her into the woman he needs her to be. The cost of leadership includes misunderstanding. Not everyone will agree with her, not everyone will support her, and some will even resist her simply because she carries authority. But she cannot afford to shrink herself or retreat because of opposition. She must move forward, even when it is difficult, because she is not leading for herself, she is leading for those who are coming behind her. The weight is not meant to break her, it is meant to strengthen her. And though it is heavy, she is never carrying it alone. God walks with her, sustaining her every step of the way. A woman chosen by God cannot afford to be surrounded by just anyone. The relationship she allows into her life will either strengthen her purpose or distract her from it. She needs people who are aligned with her calling, who challenge her to grow, who speak life into her during difficult seasons. Not everyone who enters her life is meant to stay, and not everyone who claps for her is truly for her. Discernment is necessary because the wrong connections can delay what God is trying to do in her life. God-ordained relationships are not just about friendships or romantic partnerships. They are about divine connections. There will be people assigned to help her carry the weight of her calling, people who uplift her in prayer, who remind her of God's promises when she feels weak. These relationships do not drain her, they build her. They are not rooted in competition or jealousy, but in genuine support and accountability. She does not have to force these connections or chase after them. God will bring them at the right time. The absence of the right relationships can make her feel lonely, but it is better to walk alone for a season than to be surrounded by the wrong people. Some connections will have to be released because they no longer align with where she is going. It may hurt to let go, but what God removes, he always replaces with better. When the right people come, there will be peace, purpose, and alignment. She will know they are from God because they will push her closer to him, not pull her away. The relationship she nurtures should reflect the God she serves. And when she waits for what he ordains, she will never have to settle for less than his best. A woman chosen by God will experience rejection not because she is unworthy, but because she is being redirected. She will face closed doors, unanswered prayers, and relationships that end without explanation. At times, she will wonder if something is wrong with her, questioning why she was not chosen, why she was overlooked, or why she was left behind. But rejection is not meant to break her. It is meant to position her. What looks like loss is often divine protection, ensuring she does not settle for less than what God has planned. God sees what she cannot see. He knows when an opportunity will lead to destruction instead of destiny. He knows when a person she loves does not have the capacity to love her the way she deserves. He knows when a path she desires will only lead to disappointment. So, in His mercy, He allows rejection to take place, not as punishment, but as protection. What feels like a setback is actually a setup for something greater. If she received everything she wanted in her timing, she would miss the best that God has prepared in His timing. Rejection teaches her to trust. It forces her to let go of her own plans and surrender to the unknown, believing that if something was removed, it was never meant for her. It is not always easy to accept in the moment, but looking back, she will see how every closed door led her to something better. She will realize that what she thought was meant for her was only a distraction from her true calling. Rejection is not a sign of failure. It is evidence that God is guiding her towards something far greater than she imagined. What is meant for her will always find her in His perfect time. A woman chosen by God does not grow through comfort. She grows through pain. The trials she endures are not random. They are designed to refine her, strengthen her, and prepare her for the calling on her life. Pain has a way of stripping away illusions, revealing truth, and forcing her to develop a deeper dependence on God. It pushes her beyond shallow faith and into a place of true surrender, where she no longer relies on her own strength, but on His. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment is shaping her into the woman she is meant to be. Pain teaches her lessons that ease never could. It shows her who she is when everything is stripped away, when she has no choice but to stand firm in faith. She learns resilience, patience, and wisdom in ways she never would if life was always easy. It is through suffering that she gains discernment, realizing what is truly important and what is merely temporary. She stops chasing what does not serve her and starts valuing what is eternal. Pain shifts her perspective, making her stronger, wiser, and more compassionate toward others who are walking through their own battles. Though the process is difficult, it is never wasted. The woman she was before the pain is not the same woman she becomes after enduring it. She learns that endurance produces character, and character produces hope. She discovers that even in the darkest moments, God is still working, still refining, still molding her into the leader He has called her to be. The pain does not define her, but it does prepare her. So, what once broke her now builds her, and what once hurt her now helps her walk in the fullness of her purpose. A woman chosen by God must learn to walk by faith, not by sight. She will face seasons where nothing makes sense, where the road ahead is unclear, and where God seems silent. In these moments, she will be tempted to rely on what she can see, to seek reassurance from circumstances, and to grasp for control. But faith does not operate in the realm of certainty. It thrives in the unseen. Trusting God means believing in His promises even when there is no visible evidence of progress. It means standing firm even when fear whispers that nothing is working in her favor. The unseen is where God does His greatest work. Just because she cannot see the outcome does not mean He is not moving. When a seed is planted in the ground, it does not immediately sprout. There is a period of waiting, of watering, of trusting that growth is happening beneath the surface. In the same way, God is orchestrating things behind the scenes, aligning people, opportunities, and breakthroughs that will unfold at the right time. Trusting the unseen means knowing that just because she cannot trace his hand, she can still trust his heart. This kind of faith requires surrender. It demands that she releases her need for immediate answers and rests in the assurance that God's timing and plan are perfect. She will have moments of doubt, but even then she must choose faith over fear. Trusting the unseen means understanding that God's ways are higher, his thoughts are greater, and his plans far exceed what she could imagine. The road may not always be clear, but she is never walking alone. Every step in faith brings her closer to the promise, even when she cannot yet see it. A woman chosen by God is not defined by her relationship status. While love and companionship are beautiful gifts, they are not the ultimate purpose of her existence. Society often conditions her to believe that fulfillment comes from romance, that her worth is tied to being chosen by another person. But God has set her apart for something far greater. Her identity is not rooted in who loves her, but in who called her. Identity is not rooted in who loves her, but in who called her. She is not incomplete without a partner, she is whole in Christ. And her purpose extends beyond earthly relationships. There will be seasons where she longs for love, where she wonders why her prayers for companionship go unanswered, while others around her step into marriage and family life. In these moments, she must remember that her life is not on hold. She was created for more than just romantic love. She was created for impact, for service, for a divine assignment that reaches far beyond the boundaries of a relationship. If love is part of God's plan for her, it will come in his timing, but it will never be the foundation of her destiny. Her calling is too great to be reduced to waiting for a relationship. God has given her gifts, talents, and a voice that needs to be heard. She has a mission to fulfill, people to uplift, and a difference to make. If romance comes, it should complement her purpose, not consume it. A partner is not meant to complete her, but to walk beside her as she continues the work God has assigned. Until that happens, she must embrace the season she is in, knowing that her life is valuable, meaningful, and powerful, with or without a romantic relationship. Her purpose is far bigger than any love story this world could offer. A woman chosen by God will often find herself misunderstood. Her thoughts, her actions, and her decisions will not always make sense to those around her. She sees life through the lens of faith, guided by a vision that others cannot always comprehend. When she walks in obedience to God, some will question her choices, doubt her intentions, or misinterpret her heart. She may be labeled as too serious, too spiritual, or too different, simply because she refuses to conform to the expectations of the world. The weight of being misunderstood can be heavy. She may feel isolated when friends no longer relate to her or when family members fail to see the depth of her calling. There will be moments of frustration when she longs to explain herself, to make people see what she sees, but not everyone is meant to understand her journey. Some will criticize what they do not understand. Some will distance themselves because they are uncomfortable with her growth. Others will assume she is lost when in reality, she is walking the exact path God designed for her. Even Jesus was misunderstood. He was questioned, doubted, and even rejected by those who could not grasp his purpose. If the Son of God was not exempt from being misunderstood, she should not expect to be either. She must learn to be at peace with not being fully known by the world because she is fully known by God. Her focus must remain on Him, not on the approval of people. As long as she walks in obedience, she does not need validation from those who cannot see what God is doing in her life. Some may never understand her, but that does not mean she is on the wrong path. It simply means she is on a higher one. A woman chosen by God must come to a place where she fully understands that His love is enough. In a world that constantly tells her she needs more validation, more approval, more affection from others, God's love stands as the only thing that truly satisfies. Human love, no matter how deep or sincere, is still flawed. People may fail her, relationships may disappoint her, and expectations may go unmet. But God's love remains constant, unshaken, and unconditional. His love is not based on her performance, her status, or her ability to meet certain standards. It is freely given, unwavering, and everlasting. There will be moments when she longs for connection, when loneliness creeps in, and when she feels unseen. In those times, she must remind herself that she is already fully known and deeply loved by God. She does not have to prove herself or strive for attention because she already has the greatest love there is. His love is the kind that heals, restores, and fills every empty space. It is the love that carries her through seasons of heartbreak, the love that reassures her when doubt tries to take over, and the love that never leaves, even when she feels unworthy. Learning to rest in God's love brings freedom. She no longer seeks approval in the wrong places or lowers her standards for temporary affection. She no longer begs for love that is inconsistent because she is anchored in a love that never changes. When she fully embraces the depth of God's love, she realizes that she lacks nothing. His love sustains her, empowers her, and reminds her that she is chosen, cherished, and complete, not because of who she is. A woman chosen by God will endure pain, but she must remember that the suffering is never without purpose. Every tear, every heartbreak, every trial is leading to something greater. The journey is not easy, and there will be moments when she questions if the struggle is worth it. But God does not allow pain without preparing a reward that far outweighs it. The difficulties she faces are shaping her, strengthening her, and refining her for something beyond what she can currently see. Pain has a way of testing faith. It pushes her to the edge, forcing her to trust God even when circumstances make no sense. But what she endures today is not the end of her story. There is a promise on the other side of her suffering. Every great woman of faith has had to walk through seasons of difficulty before stepping into the fullness of her calling. She is no different. What feels unbearable now will one day be the very testimony that encourages others, the evidence of God's faithfulness in her life. The reward is not just in what she receives, but in who she becomes. She gains wisdom, resilience, and a deeper connection with God. She learns that no amount of pain can separate her from His love, and no trial is wasted in His hands. When the season of suffering ends, she will stand stronger, more prepared, and more grateful for the journey. The pain will pass, but the purpose it produces will last forever. God's promises are sure, and what He has planned for her is far greater than anything she has lost. One day she will look back and realize that every hardship was leading her to something beyond her greatest expectations. The journey of a woman chosen by God is not easy, but it is purposeful. Every trial, every heartbreak, and every moment of loneliness is not a sign of abandonment, but of divine preparation. She is not being punished, she is being positioned. She is not forgotten, she is being set apart. What she endures today is shaping her into the woman she was always meant to be. The rejection, the isolation, and the pain are not the end of her story. They are simply chapters leading to a greater testimony. She must hold on to the truth that God makes no mistakes. His timing is perfect. His plans are intentional, and His love is enough to sustain her through every storm. Though the road may be lonely at times, she is never truly alone. He walks with her, strengthens her, and ensures that nothing she goes through is in vain. What He removes, He replaces with better. What He allows, He uses for her growth. What He withholds, He prepares in greater abundance. She must not shrink back, settle, or lose faith. She was not chosen for an ordinary life. She was chosen for something greater. The struggles are temporary, but the purpose is eternal. If she stays the course, trusts God's process, and refuses to give up, she will see his promises unfold in ways beyond her imagination. The pain will fade, the tears will dry, and what she once questioned will one day make perfect sense. God has never failed her, and he never will. Her story is still being written, and the best chapters are yet to come.